News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, with you till the top of the hour. And joining us, let's get out of the way right now, is Chuck Crosby from Boston, the airport there. Chuck, great to see you. You're coming back from a trip.
I am. We spent a little time at Cape Cod, and now we're coming back.
Lots of lobster?
Lots of it. Body weight in clams fried, and I love.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Also here, and I think he's jealous as well, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service. I hire veterans. They're the number one home team inspection service in the country now 6 years in a row. By the way, you can reach Chuck Crosby at the Crosby Law Offices because he'll be back in town today, 499-6360. Brad Lawler, you can reach Home Team Inspection, 844-411-TEAM. Good to have you here, Brad.
Yes, good morning. Sir. Thank you. And
good
yes,
morning.
I'm a little jealous.
Bob,
plans for breakfast.
I would like to point out that I've been doing business in the airport for quite a while now.
While you were there. That's right.
Yeah. Between iPads and laptops, we can do pretty much everything except do a closing.
That's true. And you can reach me anytime, 376-5483. First, let's start off with some news. Housing boom may be cooling as weekly mortgage demand drops again. The average rate for 30-year fixed mortgages down to 3.17%. That's down from 3.18% last week. But the Mortgage Bankers Association is saying that applications for the mortgages to purchase home fell 3%. And they were 2% lower than last week a year ago. So we're seeing a kind of a trend. And the reason that we think that's happening for the most part is people are tired of the very tight housing inventory, which is a problem. They're just putting in offers. We'll go into that in just a couple of minutes. Also, millions of Americans could face eviction as a housing protection expires in June. Chuck, you've been warning us about this for a while. More than 11 million Americans behind on their rent and could be pushed from their homes.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It does look like sooner or later the piper does have to be paid.
Yes, and that's a concern. We'll be tracking that. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention eviction moratorium, which has been in effect since September, will lift on June 30th. So just a couple of weeks away. Houses in the U.S. costing 13.2% more in March of this year than it did the same time last year, which is an amazing increase. If you're a homeowner and if you're a buyer, you're kicking yourself for not getting into this, to buying a home sooner. There are record low levels and supplies of homes. That's become a big issue. At the end of April, there were only 1.6 million homes for sale in the U.S. That's down 20.5% from the year ago. And, of course, higher costs for land, labor, building materials, including lumber, as we've talked about before in the show, also have impacted home builders building new homes. CNN is reporting some buyers are offering trips to the Caribbean, promising to name their firstborn child after the seller, or asking $100,000 in cash be given over from the buyer to the seller. Legal, Chuck, in your mind, as a yes, no?
As long as it's not being done by realtors and that sort of thing, I'm sure there's some way you can find a RESPA violation in there. But if I'm buying a house from you and there's no licensed personnel in the middle of that transaction, why not?
Well, let me tell you a story that's going around, just FYI. A buyer, and I heard that it happened in Louisville, but I'm not quite sure. Buyer buys a house, $1.2 million, first day on the market. They get the contract accepted. And another buyer from California says, I really wanted that house. He's got cash and he wants that house. Have you heard the story already?
I've heard the story.
You have? Okay. Within a day of this all happening, the second buyer from California contacts the first buyer, says, I'll give you $20,000 if you reassign that contract to me. The first buyer says, nope, not going to do that. This California buyer says, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $100,000 right now. And just reassign the contract to me. And it happened. So that just goes to show you how crazy this market is in what we're seeing in terms of homes. So that means that the buyer number one made $100,000 in less than a day for a home they never owned, never had to close on. They just made the $100,000 in cash. That's legal. Can't stop that type of enterprise.
Yeah, that's perfectly legal.
Perfectly legal. Brad, lead-based paint violations are surging in the remodeling boom because they're not following guidelines. Is that right?
Yeah, they're not. A lot of homeowners don't understand that if you have a house built before 1978, you have to follow lead-based paint remediation standards when you do any sort of remodeling in the home. So professional painters are all certified to do that type of work, but homeowners probably have no idea that they're creating lead hazard when they go to sanding and scraping away at paint in those houses. So it's a real problem. We end up testing homes after renovations or before home sales to just identify if lead dust has gotten anywhere in the house, and we find it pretty frequently. You'll find it in registers and places that it's just circulating through the house. So if you got a house built before 78 and you don't, the best advice I can give you is hire a professional painter to do any sort of indoor painting, or at least test all that paint before you start sanding and chipping away at it to find out whether or not it is a lead-based paint.
And at the very least, really check the guidelines online from the federal government for handling lead-based paint, potential lead-based paint. So I think you got that. Yep. Chuck, we've talked in the past, zombie foreclosures are creeping up in the second quarter of 2021. Can you give us a quick definition of what zombie foreclosures are?
Yeah, zombie foreclosure is where a person still owns the house, and it differs from state to state, okay? But in Kentucky, we are what they call a lien state. That is to say, you own your house, the bank has a lien against it. So you aren't required to leave until they actually sell the house at a commissioner's sale and then go to evict you at that point. But a zombie house is where the people just get out, they've abandoned the home, the foreclosure isn't over, or as happened in Louisville, a lot of houses were foreclosed on back in the last unpleasantness. A lot of houses were foreclosed on. They'd get right up to the point to where they were going to be sold at a commissioner's sale, but the bank just put the brakes on. They didn't want to have all the extra houses in their inventory. So that's a zombie house. It's one where there's nobody living in it. It's abandoned, but yet title hasn't yet vested in the bank. So the bank can't do anything to it. They can't sell it. All they can do is continue the foreclosure, which in Louisville, these days takes about a year and a half.
So note that there are a lot of people who are hoping that these foreclosures get done quickly. About 1.4 million residential properties in the U.S. were vacant in the second quarter of this year. That's from a new report from Atom Data Solutions. The question is, how long will it take the banks to do their due diligence, take control of the home, and then put them back on the market, because there are hundreds of thousands of people looking to purchase?
Because just because they do the foreclosure and they get the sale, you've still got about another 2 months before they own it. And then however long it takes them to get it up on market.
One of the thing we're following, lenders shortening their closing times. In April, the average days to close fell to 51 days. It was 52 in March. That's according to a new survey. Last year, 42 days to close a loan. So I don't know if you've seen the tracking, the same thing, Chuck, in your offices, but there is starting to come back down again. I'm not sure what the holdup was. One of the things that we have always looked at is the cost of improving your home, because there are a lot of people who are saying, I'm not going to move. I'm just staying there. That's great. So what do you do to improve the quality of your home? What gives you the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak? New report out. It's the cost versus value national average by the Remodelers Association. Says the number one thing, and we've talked about this in past years, apparently it's number one again. If you're going to do remodeling, your garage door replacement, it will cost on average almost $4,000, and you'll get 94% of that back if you decide to sell. That's a good thing. The worst thing you can do is, one of the worst things, is remodel your master suite. The average cost, and again, this is obviously skewed from people all over the country, $320,000 to remodel it completely, but you'll only get 48% of that back. So be prepared. If you'd like a copy of this remodeling report, just send me an email, bob@WeSellLouisville.com, put in the subject line, remodeling report. I'll send you there's a whole bunch of stuff on here and I'll give you the link to it. If you want to see a replay of this show, yes, see it besides hearing it, go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's a redirect to our YouTube channel, LouisvilleAnswers.com. All right, so let's go to the questions and see what we've got here. Kathy says, we moved into our house. We want to take care of things right away. I've gotten lots of recommendations about what to do with the grass clippings when we mow, but to me, it sounds like a matter of personal opinion. Brad, you're in on it. Chuck, I don't think you do much grass cutting anymore.
I don't cut grass.
Don't cut grass. What do you say? What do you suggest, Brad, for clipping?
Well, I'm a mulcher myself, have been for a long, long time. If you're going to mulch, just make sure you keep the blade sharpened on your mower. I think most of the commercial outfits are, mulching. I think the only danger is mulching leaves can be problematic if you're trying to mulch too many. But I mean, I got a great looking yard and have always mulched, but appreciate the folks that bag all their clippings too. It seems like an awful lot of work, but
it does, especially if you can do just as well with mulching. You know what I found's working really well is mulch, obviously, but cut the grass in two different directions at the same cutting
height.
So
right.
Yeah. So you start a little higher, go in one direction. I've got a riding mower, so that makes it easier. I met a guy yesterday. He's doing his lawn, push mower, fairly big yard. He's a senior. He says, that's how I keep in shape as I push that mower. But anyway, go in two different directions and it cuts up the mulch even more, gets it into the lawn.
Is it just the direction that makes those lines, or is it height?
No,
it's different heights.
It's the direction of the cut is what makes the different pattern in the grass.
Okay.
So that's why it looks light green going in one direction and darker green in the other, just the way the grass is kind of laying down when it spins. So,
and that's the trick professional cutters are using.
Yeah, but mow high. Keep it as high as you can, because that makes for a healthier grass. Don't cut it short.
So what do you think? 3 inches is the lowest?
Yeah. That's where I am. Yes.
Chuck, this one goes to you, Agent Eddie. Eddie is a real estate agent in Louisville. He's sending buyer love letters and videos. Now, the National Association of Realtors not so big on that, but he's doing it. Buyers are sending the love letters to another seller saying, listen, hey, I love your house, or even video. They want to get a foothold in as an offer. So thoughts about that, Chuck?
I don't ever see that stuff. By the time I get involved, they've already met and decided to like each other, or not, as the case may be. So I don't know. So explain to me what this love letter videos are.
So let's say, Chuck, you're going to buy Brad's home, but there are a lot of other people who are looking to buy Brad's home. So you write a love letter basically saying, hi there, seller. We love your home. We think you've done a great job. We are going to keep it with the same type of style that you've done. So that's the basic.
So it's buyer to seller, not agent.
Yeah, agent. But the agent has to really be in the middle, because he has to pass, unless the buyer drops the letter off, he has to pass that from the buyer to the seller.
Yeah. There's no licensing issues between buyer and seller. And, if an agent said, no, I'm not going to do that, well, you already know the address of the house.
Drop it off.
Yeah.
Again, National Association of Realtors not so happy about doing that. They're actually frowning and saying, don't do it. But anyway.
Why? What's the reason?
Ethnicity. It can show the type of ethnicity from the buyer to the seller. There could be discrimination. That's what the national concern is, what I'm being told. All right, we're going to take a break. And by the way, if you hear the background noise, because we do, it's Chuck Crosby from the Crosby Law Offices is today coming to us from the airport in Boston at Logan International as he's returning from a trip, but we appreciate him sticking and being online with us. You can reach Chuck because he'll be back in town immediately. 499-6360. Also, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service. You can reach Brad anytime at 844-411-TEAM. My son Greg's busy already working this morning, so he didn't have the ability to get on the show with us. And you can reach me on my cell phone at 376-5483. A reminder, if you want to see what people are saying about us, go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. And if you want to read what they're saying, go to LouisvilleZillow.com, where we've got our reviews. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you till the top of the hour, coming to us from, I love Zoom, doing these Zoom calls, because Chuck could be anywhere. Chuck Crosby, Crosby Law Offices. He's coming from Logan International Airport in some corner. So if you hear the background noise, you'll know why. He does a great job on closings, and you can reach him at 499-6360. Brad Lawler is also here. He's coming from his office this morning and Home Team Inspection Service. They come in as a team, and you can reach Brad and his folks at 844-411-TEAM. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, anytime. We are desperately looking for homes to list and sell. And we've got a couple of great ideas on how to do this so you're not having to worry about finding your next home. We call it a reverse contingency, and we just had some success with that. By the way, my thanks to Barbara Corcoran, who's our mentor and also a friend. And thank you for being so kind to us. So questions more that are coming here. Tony wants to buy a home and keeps missing out. Tony has told his agent, Chuck, that he wants to make 4 offers at one time on 4 different homes. His agent says that's not quite the proper thing to do. Your suggestions on that?
It's not quite the proper thing to do unless he's independently wealthy and can purchase all 4 homes.
Because what if 2 of them accept the offer? Then what?
Yeah. Then he's stuck having to buy 2 homes. Now, when I had seen something like that, they were saying, oh, but we can get out at the inspection phase. But then again, you've got some issues because that's not negotiating in good faith. And at some point, that in and of itself could be a cause of action.
Yeah. So the word is 1 home, 1 time. I understand there's a lot of frustration, but this is something that we have no control over. And if you're on the opposite end and all of a sudden you accept an offer and you find out, you can go after that. I guess, Chuck, you can go after the buyer for damages. Yeah. From Arnold, he is moved into a new house. He says the deck needs some staining. Can he sand the wood smooth, Brad, the surface of the deck to remove chips?
Yes, you can. I will tell you that sanding a deck, in my experience, is probably more effective than using a pressure washer. I see lots and lots of people who damage their decks using pressure washers. They just don't know how strong those things are. They will cut holes in if they're not adjusted correctly. So yeah, sanding's a good way to do it. Just belt sanders, unless it's a really large surface, and then you can rent some kind of commercial sized sanders as well. But it's a good way to do it.
Chuck, about a year ago, did you add on to your deck or did you replace the whole deck?
We replaced the whole thing.
And did you use Trex?
Trex on the railing only.
Okay, because one of the things they're going to do it's more expensive, especially with the way wood is these days.
Yeah,
I was just wondering. And I have the same problem. I tried renting a sander from one of the big maintenance stores. The Orange, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It didn't work so well. I used very coarse. It vibrates back and forth. Didn't work so well. So maybe
was it a belt or a circular orbital?
It was a vibrating. It went back and forth.
Yeah.
It didn't circular.
No, for the deck, that's kind of hard. Usually the belt sanders are in a straight line. You just follow the wood. But the circular ones, that'd be a lot more difficult with all the ups and downs. The nooks and crannies you got to get into on a deck.
You just got to be careful that you don't hit nails or nail pops.
Right. Yeah, they will make a mess of the belts.
If you are moving or planning on moving or planning on doing some of your spring cleaning or soon to be summer cleaning, we have got some tips, 10 of things you need to toss out of your kitchen or kitchen closet ASAP. Now, granted, Chuck's in Boston at the airport, but he is such an aficionado of cooking. Old spices, get rid of. Can you give us a rundown of why?
Oh, yeah. Spices, if they're whole, tend to last a little longer. But if they've already been ground up, oils released, that sort of thing, they're just going to lose all flavor within about, if they're a year old, thaws them.
Yeah.
Really? A year old, Tom?
Oh,
yeah.
I do
They're
it
no
way
good.
earlier than that. Every 3-4 months, I'll go through and clean them out.
That's killing me. How about expired?
The whole ones last longer, like a whole nutmeg.
Yeah.
You can keep that longer, but once you've used a bit of it, well, then it starts to fall apart.
Expired food. Okay, this is I get into this battle often. I'm told if it's out of date, you got to throw it out in the can. Really?
Nah. Let's just say that I might have in the late 70s gotten into my grandmother's stash of World War II sea rations. They were fine.
I mean, it's not.
If the can's dented or misshapen,
that's true.
I wouldn't mess with it.
It's not uncommon for a can of beans or a box of pasta to sit on the shelf for a while. So you're saying don't worry about it at this point.
I'm not saying don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I can just say that when I was growing up, we didn't throw anything out.
That's how that's the same with me. Open bags of flour and sugar, should that be thrown out after a specific period of time?
Actually, yeah. With flours. Now, if it's been bleached and processed, you shouldn't ought to be eating it anyhow.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff will last a lot longer. But if you get, say, a stone ground grit, there's actually weevils in that stuff that will grow and multiply. And so you don't keep those for very long.
Yeah, and the oils go rancid in those flours
the oils
too,
go rancid.
So they have a nasty, bitter taste to them.
How about, and I'm so guilty of this, purchasing mistakes, things that I think I'm going to eat and then leave them in the closet because I never want to eat them. We need to go through those. I suspect. Do all of us agree we all have the same problem? There's stuff in. Okay. Yeah, I think we all do. Okay. Stale snacks. Here's another one that, again, you may be prepping to move. Now's the time to throw them out. You may be just spring cleaning. This is the time to think about it. Stale snacks in there. How old are stale snacks?
Wait, hold it.
Yeah.
Snacks can go stale? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, not the Twinkies, perhaps. But,
right. I mean, can Cheetos really go stale? Sorry.
Yes, they can, actually.
Okay.
But they can get better, Kent. Don't you think they get better if they're stale and a little more munchy?
No.
Crunchy?
No. I disagree with that.
All right. Well, damaged equipment is another thing, like a sauce pot for gravy that you may have burned and you're just keeping it for sentimental value. To any of the things that you come to mind for your own closets and locations?
Yes, a half-seasoned cast iron skillet I can't bear to throw away.
Okay.
Well, why is it only half season?
Because I burned the other half of it, and I can't. I've tried everything to clean it up, and I can't get the other side to release the carbon.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a mess. But I can't throw it away.
Something else: mismatched plastic containers. And I think all of us are guilty of having those. I've got a drawer full of them. Get rid of those now. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to find something to store some soup and not being able to find the cover.
And if anyone can tell me how to find replacement lids for Tupperware from the early 1970s, please call. Please let me know. I've got Tupperware bowls that are perfect, just no lids for them.
And then, this may actually help you if you've got duplicates of white plastic storage lids or other items. Call Brad because you might be able to sell them for a very cheap price. You'll be able to sell them.
The thing is, who really uses those? I mean, I will use them so that I can feel good twice. Once I feel thrifty by putting stuff leftovers away in the refrigerator. And then the second time I feel like I've saved my family from certain death when I pull them out of the refrigerator and throw it away.
Do any of us reuse those cheap plastic with the tops? You buy them in the Kroger's and and you just use them. You can toss them out, but I just have this feeling I want to reuse them just to not throw the stuff in a landfill. And anyway,
I do the same thing, Bob. Yeah. Even the soup containers from the restaurants, they somehow end up being repurposed.
Like Yeah.
What I do is I buy mason jars, both quart and half quart.
Yeah.
And then, on Sunday night, if we have leftover something or another, I'll, jar it up for whomever wishes to take it with them. And then they bring it back the next week.
You hope.
Jar back.
You hope they bring it back. Wrapping up here, tiny amounts of leftover staples, bag or two tablespoons of lentils. I mean, do we keep those? I do. And then a few years ago, you ran across, say, a sale on refried beans, and you stocked up. But you're not going to ever eat them. Those are things that we need to go through. And
oddly, Jacques Pepin has a whole YouTube series on using just those items.
Oh, really? To make a dish out of?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
What's that?
Wow. He does like little 10-minute videos, shows you how to take all these canned goods and things that you wouldn't normally consider haute cuisine and make it edible.
So that pretty much wraps up. If you're thinking, this is you're bored or you got some time on your hands, might be something to tackle. The leftover stuff in the kitchen closet, or if you're planning on moving, now's the perfect time. And speaking of that, as we wrap things up, let me just give you a reminder. One of the biggest concerns that we have right now from sellers, and the reason they're not putting their homes on the market, and by the way, there's a need for homes to go on the market, is because they're afraid of not being able to find their next home. It is a serious problem. And so what we are pushing are 3 different techniques and we've used these successfully. A reverse contingency, which basically says, and Chuck, monitor this so that you can agree that this works. When a contract comes in, if it's acceptable, we counter back and say, we're accepting price, but the contract doesn't become enforced until, and you put in the days, it could be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, until the seller has had a chance to find his next home. And if he doesn't, then this contract is null and void.
As long as that's made a contingency of the contract,
right.
You can agree to whatever.
Right. So that's one thing, and we're doing that successfully. And you might say, well, why would somebody do that? Well, the answer is because you're the only house in town, and they're willing to wait to be able to get your house to make sure you find your next house. So that's one. 2 is to extend the closing date so that maybe it's a 65 to 85-day closing date. So you've got somebody who's locked in on your house, and you're able to go out and find your next house. And the third thing, which we just did a week and a half ago very successfully, we got a rent back. So here's what happens. Our sellers want to make sure they find their house. They've had a great contract come in, and they'll close in 30 days, and then they'll rent back at a agreed upon price until they find their next home in maximum of 90 days. I hope you followed all that. All of that is really important for any seller thinking about buying but not being able to see their next home on the market right now. This is a way to help you get past all that. If you want more information, please give me a call, because we can help you. 376-5483. My thanks to Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices, who's between planes heading back to Louisville. You've heard the noise. It's Boston Logan International Airport. And you can reach Chuck from this afternoon on at 499-6360. Thanks, Chuck, for hanging in there and working with us from Boston. And then Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Services. They have a great team. They come in as a team and do a great job. You can reach Brad and his crew at 844-411-TEAM. Again, my son Greg was already working today, so he's out. And you can reach me anytime on my cell phone at 376-5483. Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you next Sunday right here on News Radio 840 WHAS.